All righty, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Pio, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's Fireside Chat. I'm very honored to be joined by two amazing individuals. We have Deputy Mayor Samir Mayekar and Head of Uber Freight, Lior Ron. Today, we are going to be talking about the impact and growth of Uber Freight in the city of Chicago, as well as the COVID response over the past year. So a little information about Uber Freight. Uber Freight is a logistics platform built on the power of Uber, with the goal to reshape global logistics and deliver reliability, flexibility, and transparency for shippers and carriers. Since launching in 2017, Uber Freight has built one of the world's largest digitally enabled carrier networks and transformed entrenched practices around pricing and booking freight to reduce inefficiencies and increase opportunities for business growth and industry collaboration. Today, the business counts for over 65,000 carriers in its network and thousands of shippers as customers, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies, including AB InBev, Nestle, LG, Land O'Lakes, and many more. Also, I would also like to quickly highlight our raffle prizes that we're doing this Chicago Startup Week. Make sure to attend as many events as you can. We're going to be giving away raffle prizes for media, for our Gamer Jibe or other platform, and some AirPods as well. But before we get started, I'd like to pass it over to Michael Fastnat, CMO of Chicago and the interim president and CEO of World Business Chicago. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you, Jack, and good afternoon, everyone. And who doesn't want AirPods? So I'm excited to be here. And like Jack said, I'm the first ever Chief Marketing Officer for the city and interim CEO of World Business Chicago. It's the city's economic development organization. And our organization is chaired by the mayor. Our vice chair is Melody Hobson, who had, by the way, a great article today in the Wall Street Journal about how we are trying to get diversity, especially Black leadership in organizations across the country. Our board at World Business Chicago consists out of more than 70 CEOs and C-suite executives who really trying to represent the future of Chicago and ensuring that we're having an equitable recovery in our great city. But first, I want to congratulate the organizers of Chicago Startup Week. It's one of Chicago's largest student-run startup conferences. It's an amazing event every year, and we're all very grateful that you are being a great voice in our tech community in the city. Secondly, I'm excited for this Fireside Chat because in the weather today, what else is better than a Fireside Chat? But first of all, this is really important to highlight an amazing story because in 2019, Uber Freight made the smart and very visionary decision to move from San Francisco to Chicago. Today, Uber Freight is really expanding its presence with an amazing new office in the old main post office, which will be a great center for Uber Freight. Globally, freight is a nearly $4 trillion industry, ripe for change and innovation, and Uber Freight is leading the way towards a more efficient and collaborative way of working. Uber Freight has really built a cutting-edge technology for both sides of the freight marketplace, unlocking opportunities for shippers, carriers, and their drivers so they can focus on improving their bottom lines, growing the business, and keeping their eyes on the road ahead. Uber Freight chose the new home in Chicago because especially Lior recognized that our city is a global innovation powerhouse. The city has always been at the heart of the global transportation industry, and we're excited that Lior's company is here now as a leader to really develop the next frontier of innovation in this important industry. Today's panel, you will hear more about why Lior and his firm has chosen Chicago and how the city is stepping up to help companies like Uber Freight. You will hear from a good friend, Deputy Mayor Samir Mayekar, on the city's role as an accelerator for startups and innovation ventures. And we'll hear also from Lior of how Uber Freight will continue to innovate. Lior has truly accomplished global career. He's one of the city's best champion and advocates, especially for our local and diverse tech community. I'm excited for him to share his story. Thank you, Lior and Uber Freight, for your commitment and as a presenting sponsor for this year's Chicago Startup Week. Now it's my pleasure to introduce both of you and on to you and warm us all our heart and bodies today in this cold winter day in Chicago. Lior and Samir, please. The platform is yours.
All righty. Well, thank you, Michael, so much for that introduction, just to really outline what Uber Freight is doing in the city. As we get started here, I think the first questions that most of the students in the audience are probably thinking about is how you got from where you were in college. I know both of you have your own college story to where you are now. So I'd love to start off with that topic. So I'll start with Lior. So how did you get from where you went to college? I know you went to Israel Institute of Technology, right? And then Stanford. How did you get from there to Uber Freight?
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Michael. Super excited to join you today. Super excited about the week. Super excited to be in sponsor, and just thrilled to be able to share our story, my story, with all the students. And I think it starts with being a student. So I'm thrilled with the audience. This is the most special time of your life. I'm hoping you are seizing every opportunity and carpe diem, and every second in those studies matter. And my journey also started as a student, and really trying to leverage every opportunity I have to learn and to grow personally, and to hopefully contribute back in the process. So I started in the Technion in Israel, which is the Israel Institute of Technology. And I think, in hindsight, all our story seems glorified and we connect all the dots. But let me just share that the reality on the ground when I try to actually apply is I wasn't accepted to begin with. And I got a no, and then I got another no. And then I just started listening to sessions there without being accepted. And then after a year of doing that, I reapplied, saying that I actually listened successfully and participated in some sessions without the university knowledge, and compelled them to accept me. Then I was rejected from a 4-year plan I wanted to participate. I had to do the 4-year plan in 3 years. Then I won't bore you with all the rejections, but the moral of that story was, never say never, and always keep trying and fighting for what you believe. So had the chance to have an amazing education out of the Technion, and then I felt compelled to continue to grow and learn as an individual, and that road led me to Stanford, which I was also rejected once before being accepted, and packed up my suitcases and landed at Stanford 4 days after leaving my military career in Israel to continue my journey there on business, and leveraging opportunities with some amazing professors we had from the industry. So that's the other moral of the story, really leveraging industry contacts and really leveraging mentors along the way. I was blessed to have both Eric Schmidt, who was then the CEO of Google, and Andy Grove, who was the legendary founder and CEO of Intel, both as professors at Stanford, and I was able to develop a relationship with them. That led me to start my first 2 companies. And the second one actually led me to Google, where I had a blast leading Google Maps for 5 years, and really transformed, together with a fantastic team, the world of online mapping. But then my next tour of duty at Google was after we have acquired Motorola. And I flew to Libreville and was living out of my suitcase in either Libreville or downtown Chicago for the next 3 years, in which I fell in love with the city and the amazing talent base that Chicago has to offer, and witnessed firsthand all the amazing university grads coming into Motorola, and just the ingenuity, innovation, and hard working the city has to offer. So then, as I was thinking about what I want to do with my next decade of life post-Google, I wanted to contribute back. I wanted to do something where I can really maximize my impact as a technologist in a meaningful industry. And all roads led to logistics and to Uber as the best place in the universe to incubate transportation businesses. And I had the pleasure of starting Uber Freight and Uber's logistics business at Uber 4 years ago, and that led us to today. So I was very fortunate along the way, never take no for an answer, leveraging mentors, and I was just fortunate to get to know the amazing talent and the amazing university base in Chicago as part of my journey.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing journey, man. It's so real. It's just sharing all the hardships and that you just never say die, and you never know where you're going to get. All right, Samir, what you got?
Well, thanks, Jack, and hello to all of you students. And Lior, we're so happy to have you and Uber Freight here in Chicago. I bring you all greetings from Mayor Lightfoot. And, my journey from a student where I was, in the same shoes as all of you to now helping lead Chicago it was a meandering journey. Like Lior said, I also did not have any straight line of sense as to where I was going, certainly not when I was an undergrad. But what I'll say is I followed my interests, and I've always been interested both in government and public service, and also very much in business and entrepreneurship. And so when my career started after undergrad, I moved to Chicago to go to college. And I fell in love with this city, and I started my career as a business consultant. But after a few years of that, I went back into the government, and I actually had volunteered for a candidate who a lot of people gave a very low odds to winning an election, and that was our very own Barack Obama. And so I worked on his presidential campaign, which was headquartered here in this great city of Chicago. And one thing led to another, and when he won, I moved the next day to go work on the transition back in 2008 in Washington, D.C. I moved into the White House on President Obama's first day, January 20th, 2009, and I served in his administration. And what I learned in my time in government is that I really deeply cared about clean energy and about decarbonizing the economy. And so when it was time for me to take my next step professionally, I came back to Chicago to go to graduate school. And I came to graduate school really with an interest in starting my own company and really focusing on the clean energy sector. And so while I was a grad student at Northwestern, I met a bunch of brilliant scientists. And one of the great things about Chicago is we have 2 national labs right here in the outskirts of the city. And there was this wonderful battery technology that was being incubated at one of the national labs and at Northwestern. So I met my co-founders, and we took that technology as students. We went out and pitched it all around the country in student business plan competitions. We won a couple of them. We closed our seed round of funding. And while we were students, we were running our company. And then we spun it out of the university, raised some venture capital, and I spent the next almost 10 years building that company, Nanograph Technologies, from a classroom and a lab at the university to our own lab. And now the company has offices in Chicago, which is where our headquarters are. We have an office in Silicon Valley. We have a manufacturing facility in Tokyo and another office in Shanghai. So, that story wouldn't have been possible without Chicago. But also it was a story that wasn't a straight line. It was a journey of me hopping between the public and the private sectors. And I've now found myself helping lead economic development here for a city that I love. Because while I was running my company, I met a woman named Lori Lightfoot who was running for mayor and was helping her. And once she won, she wanted me to come lead her transition and then brought me into the government. So I'm back into the government now doing my public service.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Samir. First off, I want to thank you for coming back to Chicago, I guess, for making that transition, for really seeing what is possible here, and to really making the most of what you can with the resources that are available. Like you said, we have those facilities within Chicago that are just so readily available for people to take advantage of. So amazing job, and I hope you're enjoying the development that you're doing now with Lori Lightfoot. So we're going to transition now to back to Lior and kind of Uber Freight's story. Why did Uber Freight move their HQ to Chicago, and what are some of the growth and hiring plans for Uber Freight looking like?
Why not move it to Chicago? It made so much sense. I'll inverse the question. So, few things that get me really excited about Chicago, and I really feel the sky is not even the limit, and there's endless potential here. Starting with the simple fact that Chicago is the center of the logistics universe. It has been so for decades and centuries to date, and it will continue to be so. Logistics is an acquired taste. You need to understand logistics, and Chicago has already acquired and mastered that taste. So in terms of really understanding the logistics market and the opportunities to fully transform it with technology, I think of no better place than Chicago to build the headquarters and to leverage all the amazing logistics talent in the city that can really help gather insights and understanding of the needs of customers by being super close to that domain. So that's one reason. The other is just our occasion of meeting today with everyone here is just the amazing talent base. I got to know the talent base firsthand while I was at Motorola. I saw the amazing engineering talent. I saw the ingenuity of those engineers. I saw their broad sense of potential, and I saw their Midwest work hard ethic and willing to actually do whatever it takes to really make a difference in the deepest sense of the word. And I was just blown away by all of those combined. I saw that transforming Motorola over the years to be extremely innovative and transformative, and I hope we can do the same with Uber Freight, where it's not enough to just be proficient in tech, but you need that leaning into the business side of things. You need that natural curiosity on logistics or making a difference in our customers' lives, and you need that a work ethic to actually sit on a problem and not chase a shiny object or a switch problem every 6 months, but just focus on a deep problem for a year, 2, 3, to be able to make a meaningful impact. So I was super excited about that as well. And then finally, with Samir and Michael and the team here, I think Chicago was always super supportive of tech and innovation. I saw that firsthand with the Merchandise Mart and Motorola, and we witnessed that again with our exciting new headquarters that I can't wait to open up in the old post office later this year. And through the process, Samir and the entire team and Mayor Lightfoot has been extremely supportive and accommodating, and it's just one of those unique partnerships where I feel great about the city that we're headquarters in. I feel great about the talent base. I feel great about the DNA that we're creating and the culture of really obsessing on customer needs and success as a team. And all of those reasons just propelled us to move to Chicago, but then grow in Chicago. Jack, to your point, we have a lot of growth ahead. So the team in Chicago is now almost 1,000 people strong. We're going to more than double this team over the next couple of years. What's unique about Chicago is we have everyone at Chicago, so in Chicago, so sales and account managers and the carrier reps and the technologists and the engineers and the designers and the data scientists and the product managers, everyone under one roof with our customer base, because a lot of those shippers are around the Midwest. That allows us to innovate holistically together as a team in Chicago. And it allows us to innovate super fast. We'll get into some of the detailed innovation later on, but that allows us to just really make an impact and grow super fast. So the plan is we're going to double the team. We're going to move to our new headquarters in the old post office later this year. Samir and me, in the process of preparing for this, realized that we're both sort of upcoming pickle ball fans, so we're going to have a date on the roof of the old post office to maybe do a sort of our first pickleball play later this year. It's going to be an amazing space where we can collaborate. It's going to be ready for a post-COVID era of collaboration and how to set those physical spaces. I feel we have a very unique opportunity to build a space to be exactly for the needs of the team in a post-COVID era. And we are hiring on full cylinders on the tech side. We opened the tech office a year ago. We now have almost 50 people from product to engineering to data science to designers to product operation. And we want to more than double that number over the next few months this year. So hiring for every technical role you can imagine with some very juicy projects and initiatives undergoing and owned by the Chicago team.
Wow, man. Thank you so much for sharing all that. It's always crazy to see what's possible and the growth that you're going to see in 2 years looking back and being like, wow, we added that many people over those years. As you have talked about all the jobs offers you have, as well as this new building that's opening. Just a quick plug for some things that are happening this week. So we are doing kind of a sponsor showcase tomorrow at 6:30. So Uber Freight will be one of the companies that we are showcasing there. If you go to company booths at 6:30, you can talk to a representative and get set up for one of their jobs, everywhere from marketing to technology to sales to anything that you might want to get a job in. So definitely check that out. And then on Thursday, we're actually doing a hackathon, and the winner gets to tour the new building. So just to plug those things, because that's incredible to open a brand new building this year. And we're all kind of looking forward to the post-COVID era, right? So Samir, kind of going off of what Lior said there, how is Chicago supporting the entrepreneurial community, especially maybe Uber Freight or the entrepreneurs within Chicago?
Well, the entrepreneurial community is so important to Chicago, and truthfully, I bring just so much personal experience in this domain that it's really important that the government and that the city of Chicago is an enabler and not a blocker of innovation. You know, most times when I was starting my company, you almost want to think about the government as little as possible, but truthfully, the government can be a big assistance and really help the growth of startups, and that's how we view our role, is really making sure that we have a ecosystem that's friendly to growth here in Chicago. And so, let me give you an example of how we help startups. So at the beginning of the pandemic, as you all know, cities were facing all sorts of challenges. You know, the economies were starting to shut down. Everyone was having to shelter in place. There wasn't enough PPE for folks in a lot of cities. And we quickly realized that we needed a lot of help. And so the first thing that we did is we turned to the entrepreneur community to say, can you help us? And so from our standpoint in City Hall, we want to try and be a customer to startups so that they can grow. And there's no better anchor customer than a government, because it signals confidence. So there was a company here in Chicago that had recently started called Reaply, and the company was incubated in one of our flagship incubators called 1871, which got voted the best incubator in the world. And what Reaply helped us do is they created a solution for our early PPE problems. We had a stockpile of PPE for the hospitals, but when we were starting to open up the economy again, a lot of the businesses and small businesses in Chicago needed access to face shields. They needed access to masks and plexiglass. So what Reaply did is we hired them, and they set up an online marketplace. And they connected the demand for PPE with the supply of all local made goods. So they worked with all these local startups and small businesses in Chicago that made face masks and plexiglass, hand sanitizer, and they connected everyone to create this ecosystem here that was a closed loop, so that products that were needed by Chicagoans were supplied by Chicagoans. And it was a really successful case study. Reaply got a lot of PR with that. They were at the press conferences with the mayor and me. And actually, they just closed, I think, a $10 million round of funding a couple weeks ago. And so that little case study can show that the government can be a great customer to a startup. It can showcase that startup and really make sure that we're doing our part so that a startup like Reaply can grow. And that's truly a Chicago story. It can show that the government can be a true partner in helping a startup grow.
Yeah, it's a great story to really see that. Like you were saying, I think a lot of us have a stigma that like the government or that sector is really like stringent on a lot of things and not there to support you. But it's awesome to see that you really reached out first, and it's awesome to see what Reaply really did with their circular economy ideas. Dr. Gary Cooper, who's the CEO of Reaply, is actually speaking on Friday about Reaply and what they've done. So definitely check that out if you're in the audience. But it's an amazing story. As we transition back to Lior, as he was kind of mentioning that story, and you've talked about kind of starting it 4 years ago. What do you think is unique about Uber Freight's startup journey?
And Samir probably reminded me of another reason why I love Chicago, by the way, which is the entrepreneurial spirit in the ecosystem, 1871, the startups. As someone who's done startups in the Valley for the past 15 years, Chicago has nothing to feel, ashamed. And on the contrary, I think the ecosystem is thriving. I think there's an amazing local support system. I think there's a strong spirit of entrepreneurial spirit. And ingenuity. So I just love to hear those stories, and I just love diving even deeper into the ecosystem. I think for us, Uber Freight is also a story of a startup that is unique. I mean, we started basically, me and a few other folks basically randomly called truck drivers in the Midwest and tried to convince them that Uber is actually in the logistics business 4 years ago. They didn't believe us, and we couldn't book our first load for the life of us. So we started as a startup, and we had a unique journey since then for a few reasons that allows us to be the fastest growing logistics company in history outside of China. We're making now more than $1 billion of sales every year. The Uber Freight network now reaches out more than 1 million truck drivers and tens of thousands of shippers that want to ship goods. And there's few things that allowed us to do that. One is just the opportunity. We are talking about the largest industry globally with $4 trillion of goods moving around every year. And in the US, each one of us have, and I'll use a Chicago analogy, almost like a Michael Jordan weight, sort of 250 or less per day of goods moving on a truck for us every day. It's a massive opportunity, and it's caught behind with fax, phone, and paper, super manual. So it's once of a lifetime opportunity to transform this industry through technology. That's one of the things that really allowed us to be an early adopter and move this industry from offline to online. Now the fun part begins, because what we've created is a massive online infrastructure where we are now connected to every truck driver, we are connected to every shipper, so it becomes every new thing that we're doing can move much faster with that scale, and every one of our innovation can be much more meaningful. And if you think about what's in stakes, we're talking about the biggest job profession in the United States. 29 out of the 50 states, the top job is being a truck driver. Those guys are not aided by technology. They actually have not benefited meaningfully from technology advancement. We want to help them make ends meet. We want to help them thrive. We want technology to give them wings so they can build their businesses and not be disadvantaged compared to the bigger fleets out there. So that's super important. We want to help shippers control the cost of freight, because otherwise it's sort of an inflationary force where the cost of the goods that we buy constantly being increasing because how expensive it is to move freight because of all the inefficiencies in the system. So we want to help with that. And then finally, not to mention the environmental benefit here, where 30% of the trucks around us are actually moving empty. And if you calculate that, the fact that trucks are now the biggest, transportation is the biggest polluter of greenhouse emissions in the US, and empty trucks is a big percent of that, you get very quickly to the fact that almost 3% of US greenhouse emissions are caused by empty trucks. 3%. So we're very motivated to change all of that. And what allows us to propel super fast is we're operating in a big company like Uber. So we have all the support and the brand and the investment that we need, but then we can move like a startup, and we've been able to move super fast against that opportunity and be very motivated by all the goodness we can contribute. And finally, really empowering the team. The team knows best what to do, and every voice counts. So part of that, like billion plus of revenue, actually is hiding 5 different businesses each that are generating now 200 million plus of revenue a year. And every one of those 5 different businesses has started by a small team of 2, 3, 4 team members in a garage that actually want to make a change. We empower them to make a change. They build that business with their bare hands, and we gave them the resources. We held them accountable. We supported them. And we sort of built for them a startup within a startup environment to move super fast. And that ripple effect of empowering the team and then now having the scale that we have it just propels us faster and faster and faster into the future.
I think something you mentioned there at the end is a key, and Samir, you probably have a similar point. I'm going to ask a different question, but empowering the people that you work with, I think, is the key there. As you are building up the business, as you're really trying to get into a space that it maybe hasn't been changed in a while. It seems like people are still using kind of paper and pencil in the logistical business. So really trying to make sure that they're using the most efficient routes and making sure that the environmental impact is at the top of the list, and the things you're trying to solve is awesome. So thank you for sharing about that. Bouncing it back over to you, Samir, as we talked about a little bit about COVID and what that impact has had on the city, on Uber Freight, on the startups, and it's still happening. We're not quite out of it yet, but what is the Chicago's COVID recovery plan?
Well, most cities all around the world have faced unprecedented challenges in regards to COVID. You have a 100-year pandemic stacked on top of a 75-year level of economic downturn, stacked on top of a 50-year level of civil unrest. And this is something, all big American cities are facing. But I'm proud to say that we've navigated the waters very purposefully here in Chicago. And so through most of 2020, we were the largest economically open city in America. And also, we published the first comprehensive COVID economic recovery plan of any American city. And you're starting to see that pay dividends this year in 2021. First, we want to make sure that from a vaccination standpoint, we are the most efficient and equitable distributor of vaccines. And I'm very proud to say that we've accomplished that. We have the highest percentage of our residents that have received a first dose of any large city of our size. And we've done it in a way that actually reaches more of our Black and brown communities than our peer cities. And so that's a story about Chicago. We can do things efficiently and equitably. And as we look longer term on recovery, Chicago is going to be focusing on doubling down in a few key sectors. And that's why I'm so glad to be sharing the virtual platform here with Lior and with Uber Freight, because one of the key sectors that we are investing heavily in is TD&L and warehousing. So it's transportation, distribution, logistics, and warehousing. Why is that? Well, Chicago, as Lior alluded to, we are the largest intermodal hub in the Western Hemisphere. So this is a sector that we know very well. It's a sector that's growing tremendously as all the supply chains are disrupted from pandemic and changes in trade patterns. So we are seeing a huge uptick in companies coming to Chicago, expanding in Chicago, just like Uber Freight. The second sector we're looking at is healthcare and life sciences. Chicago saw the highest increase in venture capital growth in that sector of any city in America. The third is food manufacturing. So we are actually the largest food manufacturing hub in America. And at a time when more people are cooking at home and they're buying locally, that sector is growing tremendously. And then finally, in addition to the technology sector, we're also increasing in manufacturing. There's over 50,000 jobs in manufacturing open here in Chicago today. Manufacturing is a large part of our economy and really a nod to our industrial roots. And as companies start to bring more manufacturing jobs onshore, we're seeing a lot of growth in that sector. So Chicago can run the gamut from all these different sectors. And it's one of the core strengths of this city is we have the most diversified economy of any American city. And that's one of the reasons why we are faring as well as a big city can fare in the middle of a pandemic. And we're very optimistic about our future.
Yeah, thanks for sharing about that. I think it's really important to back up your words with actions, right? You're saying, hey, we want to be the best. We want to do this the most efficient way, as Lior was talking about Uber Freight. We want to be the most efficient at what we do. And really backing that up with vaccinations, with getting things out there, with opening up jobs, with things that we just struggled at for the entire year and even more. So all those things piled on each other is such a tough task, but it's cool to see that Chicago is really at the forefront of that. And I just want to, this wasn't a question that we had beforehand, but kind of going off of that, Lior, have you seen that from Uber Freight? Really the impact of like the recovery plan in Chicago?
Absolutely. I see companies flocking to Chicago as logistics is becoming more and more of a thing. I remember when we started 4 or 5 years ago, logistics tech wasn't that cool. Super cool now. And I think Samir and the team has done a fantastic job in supporting that. So I definitely see that trend. And to Samir's point, and I applaud the city for investing in logistics, we are in a perfect storm. Logistics used to be sort of a nice to have, then it became important. Now it's a necessity to just continue the way we currently live because we're all sheltered in place. The shape of supply chain has completely transformed over the last 9 months. We're not going to go back to the old normal. The new normal is going to be much more intensive in terms of consuming goods. It's going to look very different. The system had so much volatility shocks over the past 9 months. And right now, if you can't master this thing called logistics, you can't be in business in the US and globally. So it became just so central for the way that every company is now thinking about their business. And I think Chicago is in the center of that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your testimony on really what Uber Freight has seen from Chicago, and that it's really making a difference in the logistical industry as we're all moving to technology like we had to for COVID, and really how everything works together within the technology realm. All right, so we have about 6 minutes left for this panel. For everybody that's in the audience, if you want to throw some questions in the chat, we might get to them, but we're going to finish the chat right now with kind of your pitch for some things. So we'll go with Lior first. So why should technologists work, or anybody, as you mentioned, you have all these kinds of jobs. Why should they work for Uber Freight?
If you want to make a deep impact on the world's largest industry that is ripe for disruption and going through the most important historical transformation and the biggest untapped market that technology has yet to transform, and you want to do that in a way that is extremely empowered, so you can have a direct impact on that global industry. And you want to do that in a way that really touches society, from helping with technology the largest job class in the United States and globally, who are the underdogs of this industry, where only 7% are women. Most of those are minorities that are trying to make ends meet, and actually that's the way into middle class of the US. If you want to change their lives, then you want to do that with freight. If you want to change the price of goods that are being sold and consumed by us, we're now in inflationary, for the first time in history, the price of water is now 50% plus above in many retail stores because of supply chain issues. And if you want to help the environment, where the single biggest data science challenge of this century is going to be, how can we reduce the inefficiency of our transportation system? So come to Freight and do it from Chicago, and do it collaboratively with a wholesome team, and play some pickleball with me and Samir on the roof of the old post office. I'm looking forward to grow the team.
Who can turn down pickleball, man? That's great. No, but it seems like it's just ripe for a lot of different ways. And you heard it straight from the head of Uber Freight. So there doesn't seem to be a reason why not to. So definitely a lot of good things going for you, especially coming out of COVID. So passing it over to you, Samir, why should, if they decide not to go to Uber Freight, maybe these people starting their own company, why should they start their company in Chicago?
Well, as someone who picked Chicago as a place to grow my company, what I can tell you is this is a city where you can truly write your own story. On the personal side, it's an affordable city. You can really have a great quality of life here. So many cultural amenities, the lakefront. It is a great global city at a price that you can afford. And on the professional side, if you want to write your story as an entrepreneur, if you want to write your story in the arts, if you want to write your story in so many different industries, that's possible here. And you can ride public transit and get to work. You have the infrastructure of a great global city. You can go to our airports and get to almost anywhere in the world. And you have all of that while being able to have a great life as well. And that's truly only a story that you can say is possible here in Chicago. And as all of you are thinking about your future, I hope that you will grow yourself, your business, and your future here in our great city of Chicago.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And as a person that's lived in Chicago for now 4 years, originally from in the middle of this country, Kansas City, I'm moving up here. It's been pretty incredible to see what is possible, and really the balance, right, between, like you were saying, between the work and the life, like what's available culturally, what's available socially, as well as what's available with your work and what you're doing there. You want to have that balance, and Chicago seems like the perfect city that kind of matches what anybody would need in both of those sectors. So again, I'm going to put this out there because we do have 2 minutes left in this fireside chat here. If anybody has any questions in the audience that they would like to ask really quickly, I'll just put that out there. But because we do have some time left over, I'll just kind of open the floor to both of you. If you have anything you would like to say. I know one final question I could ask both of you. What excites you the most in growing the world of logistics? And whoever wants to go, I guess. Lior, you can go.
Maybe Samir can start this time.
Okay, Samir, you go.
So I think what excites me about the world of logistics is how much it's going to change the future of cities. The future of logistics raises so many questions that cities have to adapt to. And that's something that we're certainly thinking about here in City Hall, and we'll be doing that in partnership with so many industrial players. But COVID, as Lior said, is going to lead to a new normal. And if you live in a city and you are responsible for city planning, there's a lot of things you have to think about as to what that new normal will look like. And I'm really excited, and the team is here in Chicago to be thinking about that, so we can be on the cutting edge and make sure that this is an environment where truly the great companies of the future in the logistics industries like Uber Freight can keep growing and being successful.
Awesome.
And to build on Samir, I'm just excited about the pace of change and the future of things to come in such a huge industry that is completely transformed. I mean, we spoke about digitizing that industry and creating this digital network and connecting all the dots for the first time, creating really a network to help with a sustainable environment and price of goods. But if you look in the years to come, everything from electrification and electric trucks to change completely the way goods are being moved, to robots and integrating either robots in warehouses or outside on the road with self-driving over the years to come. And Uber Freight is going to play a significant role in that. There's just so much change that is coming. And I think for me, it's always been in life about personal growth and a place to make a deep impact. And logistics has been both and much more in the past couple of years. So just very excited to see more of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, both of you. Lior and Samir, you were amazing just to really see how Chicago is impacting startups, how they're impacting logistical things within the city, why that's so exciting. I might have to get into the logistical business. I'm going into something else right now, but maybe in the future, you never know. So for the audience members, we encourage you to head to all of the events we have. I plugged some of them during this chat here, but we also have coming up Launching Your Business, the do's, the don'ts, and the myths of launching your product. So that's coming up at 5. If you want to click on the sessions tab, you can get ready for that. We also have the raffles coming up throughout the week. We have Gamer Jive. So just check out our website. It'll have the schedule for the day. I want to thank Samir and Lior again, and everybody have a great day.